Hey guys, Get Oats here with another DIY video to share with you. Today we'll be working on a commonly overlooked maintenance item for our vehicles, the brake fluid. The method we'll be choosing to accomplish this task is the one-man method. The difficulty level of this project is on the easy side as long as you have the right tools and parts. So when should this maintenance item be worked on for the 2016 Acura RDX? Well, the easiest way to obtain this information is through the Acura owner's website at owners.acura.com. When you first go to the website, if you scroll down just a bit, you'll see a maintenance indicators link. Once you click on it, it'll take you to the maintenance minders page where you'll be able to select your year, model, and trim of your Acura RDX to view the maintenance schedule for your particular vehicle. And from there, if you expand the Maintenance Minder 1 schedule, you'll see that this commonly overlooked maintenance item should be completed every 3 years, independent of the Maintenance Minder information. Now that we know, we need to work on this maintenance item now, so let's get started. In order for you to successfully perform this task, here are a few essential tools that you'll need to have. At least 1 quart of Bosch ESI 6.34 5.1 brake fluid. You can purchase a bigger size if you want, but 1 quart should be plenty enough if you do it just right and still have enough for leftover in case. An empty bottle with clear plastic tubing to drain the brake fluid from the brake caliper's drain plug. You can also purchase specially made ones on Amazon if you like for less than $20, but it really is not necessary. A 10mm combination Crescent Wrench to loosen and tighten the drain plug. A floor jack and jack stands or ramps to lift your car up to get access to the brake bleeder valve. Some towels or rags to keep things clean and tidy. Now this part is completely optional, but I purchased the V5 reverse brake bleeder tool to help me bleed the brakes. It is a great tool that allows you to bleed the brakes in either the reverse or forward method. But in my honest opinion, you really do not need it, so don't waste your money. Originally, I purchased this tool because I wanted to try another way of bleeding the brakes instead of the traditional method, and the reverse bleeding method by pumping in new brake fluid from the brake caliper valve up through the brake lines and pushing the old brake fluid back into the master cylinder sound like a pretty interesting and easy way to accomplish this task. However, this method does not sound like a good idea if you really think about it. Why, you ask? Well, 1. Having to suck out the old brake fluid from the master cylinder each time you push new brake fluid back into it has a possibility of adding foreign contaminants like dirt, moisture, etc. back into the master cylinder. And we all know that having those kind of foreign contaminants in the brake lines can be detrimental to your brakes and also be a safety hazard. 2. The fluid in your master cylinder and brake lines will always be contaminated with old dirty fluid. The reason is because each time you use new brake fluid to push up the old dirty brake fluid through the brake lines and into the master cylinder, the new fluid gets mixed up with the old and you get contaminated fluid again. And even though you suck it out as much as you can from the master cylinder, there still will be some contaminated fluid in there. And with gravity, you can never get 100% clean fluid in the lines. It's bound to have some new fluid get intertwined with the old as it gets pushed up the lines. I mean, don't get me wrong, the fluid will still be newer than before, but it will never be as close to 100% clean fluid in the lines and in the reservoir as with using the traditional bleeding method. 3. There is more of a possibility of making a mess inside your engine because every time you have to suck out the brake fluid might drip out while being transferred into the empty bottle. Having said all that though, this tool is actually not that bad because this tool can actually allow you to do the forward brake bleeding method, which is the traditional method without having to pump the brakes. I actually tried this method in the beginning to bleed the brakes and it works very well. However, it is a lot slower than pumping the brakes. So instead of pumping the brakes, all you have to do is consistently squeeze the tool to suck out the brake fluid from the bleeder valve and into an empty bottle. The flow rate is slow, but it gets the job done right. However, I still would not recommend to use this tool to bleed your brakes this way unless you really don't want to pump your brakes. Now that we have mentioned all the necessary parts needed to perform this task, let's get to work. Due to the redundancy of the maintenance job, I'm just going to show you guys the part where I did the brake fluid change on the last wheel closest to the brake fluid master cylinder, which is the driver's side wheel well. Normally you would perform this job in the following order, following the rules of starting with the wheel that is the furthest away from the brake fluid master cylinder. So 1, it would be the passenger side rear wheel. 2 would be the driver's side rear wheel. 3 would be the passenger side front wheel. And lastly, 4 is the driver's side front wheel. With that in mind, let's begin flushing. Step 1. Make sure your engine has been turned off. I know it's a given, but it's always good to mention it for safety reasons. Step 2. Pop the hood. For those of you that don't know, the hood release is located in the driver's side footwell over here. Just pull and the hood should pop up. Then at the hood, if you reach to the middle right underside of the hood, you'll feel a release lever that will release the hood and allow you to lift it up. Step 3. Locate the brake fluid master cylinder reservoir. It should be located in the driver's side hood area by the firewall as shown here. Then just open the cap a bit to allow it to vent out. Step 4. Raise your RDX near the wheel that you'll begin bleeding the brakes at first, which is in this case is going to be the passenger rear wheel. But in the interest of time, we'll skip through to the last wheel that needs to be worked on, which is the driver's side front wheel. This is completely optional, but if you want to remove the wheel, you can go ahead and do so you can have easier access to the bleeder valve. I only did it so that I can better show you how to perform the bleeding process. Step 5. Locate the bleeder valve. You can find it right by the brake caliper and it is covered by a rubber cover as you can see here. Once you have located it, remove the bleeder valve cover and put it aside. Step 6. Loosen the bleeder valve. Take your combination crescent wrench and put it over the bleeder valve. Then take your bottle with the plastic tubing and connect it to the bleeder valve. Then you can loosen the bleeder valve and watch the brake fluid slowly drip through the plastic tubing. Step 7, and this is the fun part, bleeding the brakes. I like to do about 10 full pumps by pushing the brake pedal all the way to the floor before I stop and check the master cylinder reservoir to make sure that the brake fluid has not reached a low level. Otherwise, you run the risk of introducing air bubbles into your brake lines, which you definitely do not want. Step 8. Check your brake fluid master cylinder reservoir to see if it has reached a low level. If it has, then remove the cap to your master cylinder, top up the reservoir with brand new brake fluid, and then lightly cap the master cylinder, allowing for a small gap for venting. Step 9. Check for clean brake fluid coming out of the bleeder valve. Go to the wheel well and check the status of the brake fluid coming out of the bleeder valve and into the plastic tubing to see how clean the brake fluid is. If you notice that the plastic tubing still does not show signs of clean yellowish fluid, then go back to step 7 and repeat it and pump the brakes fully another 10 more times. Step 10. Repeat steps 7 to 9 until the brake fluid comes out clean and shows no signs of large air bubbles coming from the bleeder valve and through the plastic tubing. Step 11. Tighten the bleeder valve. Once you notice that the brake fluid exiting out of the bleeder valve and into the empty water bottle is clean yellowish fluid, then tighten back up the bleeder valve with your combination crescent wrench and remove the clear plastic tubing attached to the bleeder valve. Then place the protective bleeder valve cover back onto the bleeder valve and clean up any excess brake fluid around that area that might have seeped out. Once the brake bleeding process is complete for that wheel, install the wheel back on if it has been removed and lower the vehicle back down. Step 13. Repeat steps 4 to 12 again for each side of the car at the wheels until the brake fluid that comes out of the bleeder valve is clean and yellowish in color. Remember to top off the brake fluid with new brake fluid at the brake fluid master cylinder before working on each wheel well. Step 14. Top off the brake fluid master cylinder to the max line. Once the job is complete, go to the brake fluid master cylinder reservoir and ensure that the new brake fluid has been topped off to the max line and tightly put the cap back on the master cylinder reservoir. Now as you can see, the brake fluid in the master cylinder now looks super clean and yellowish in color. There should be very little to no sign of any old brake fluid in there. If you take a closer look at the before and after pics of the master cylinder brake fluid reservoir, you'll notice a huge difference between the two. Now what I like to do is also verify that there are no warning lights on the instrument cluster and also verify the brake pedal feel by pressing the brake pedal all the way to the floor. Your brake pedal should now feel stiff, and that is how you know that your brake fluid flush was completed properly. Congratulations, you have just successfully performed a complete brake fluid flush on your RDX. I hope this video has helped you with performing a complete brake fluid flush on your RDX. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to keep up to date for more videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching.